let's move it on to the next subject. I'm going to go to KO of the year. I'm going to go to Chris Gaban first. Who's your KO of the year, Chris Gaban?
Amir Mansour, as Deontay Wilder like to say. Amir Mansour. When he knocked out Fred Cassie in his last fight, I thought he killed him. I wonder if is he alive? Is he dead? That had to be the most vicious KO I've seen in a minute.
Yeah, Chris, when you seen that knockout, can you? I'm gonna give you another thing. Can you give me an idea of what that type of knockout reminded you of? Because when I seen that knockout, that gave me vivid memories of so many great knockouts.
Yeah, that was like a Julian Jackson knockout, kind of.
Exactly. I agree with you 100% because I was thinking the same thing. That was a vicious knockout. Let me move over to EJ Boxing Live. Who was your KO of EJ Boxing Live? Go ahead.
My KO of the year, EJ Boxing Live's KO of the year is Carl Froch over George Groves 2 in the second fight, where Carl Froch was baiting him in and landed the most, in my opinion, one punch, one of Britain's one punch, most devastating one punch in Britain boxing, in British boxing history. It was devastating. Oh, the right hand was dead. He left George Groves on the floor like Dao Singh in Street Fighter, the first one. If anyone watches, this is old school Street Fighter arcade, and Dao Singh, actually Dao Singh's on the second one actually. Dao Singh on the floor and his leg was curled over. That's how George Groves looked on the floor after Carl Froch finished with him. Someone needs to mute. I don't get no feedback here. And he looked terrible, right? He looked terrible. George Groves done great in the first fight, but Carl Froch laid him out, man. It was horrible. That was the most devastating knockout. I was like, wow. I was watching it for like all the newspapers. It was all over Twitter, everything, man. That was disgusting. This year, 2014, EJ Boxing Live, most knockout of the year, Carl Froch over George Groves in their second fight.
Okay, now I got a follow-up question as usual. In the UK, when that knockout happened, did the UK feel that it was kind of anticlimactic with all the build-up that George Groves was pretty much outboxing Carl Froch and then got put to sleep? Was it anticlimactic over there, or was that exactly the outcome that the UK as a whole, speak for the UK, wanted, in your opinion?
Well, I think personally, people didn't know. People thought, me myself, I was at the weigh-in. Right, and people anticipating there's going to be a new champion. His name was going to be St. George Groves, and most people may have believed that. But the old wise heads, Eddie Hearn, when I saw Eddie Hearn, he was saying, nah, Carl's going to win, and we didn't know it was 50-50. As the fight resumed, to be honest, the rounds are tight, but I felt Carl was winning most of the rounds there. You could give some of them to George, but when the knockout happened, man, I didn't expect that to happen. You didn't expect that to happen, man. Did not expect that to happen. People were shocked and devastated, and that's why I said it was all over the newspapers and thing. You gotta remember, that's one of the biggest events in British boxing history since probably Henry Cooper and Ali in terms of arena, probably Bruno and Lewis inside an arena. It was packed, 75,000 plus screaming British fans and even fans from all over the world watching that knockout, and it was devastating, and it was well worth people going there. It was a great event, a great showtime, and to be honest with you, bring it on, man. I know Eddie Hearn stunk up the place with Bellew and Cleverly, but bring on some more fights. And to me, it was a great night for British boxing. That knockout was great, stands out alone, but it was devastating.
All right, yeah, it was a good night for Eddie Hearn. I'm not a big believer in Eddie Hearn, but he did put on a great card there, and then he followed it up with Bellew Cleverly, which was a disgrace. But he did show himself well on that card. Let's move on to UK Boxing Blogger. What was your knockout of the year?
My knockout of the year is gonna be Walter's KO of Donier. Not because it was the most brutal one you ever see, but Donier had never been stopped before. And to me it was just an impressive. I know. I was one of these guys who doubted that Donier had ever shown his. I didn't personally think he was the greatest featherweight in the world, but to me, Donier come back like the Donier of old. He started that fight off like in great form. He was super aggressive, but when he got beat, he got taken out, and I give Walters full credit for beating a top Donier and the first guy to take him out. And then I think that accomplishment is not to be overlooked, in my opinion. So that's the reason why I say Nicholas Walters KO over Donier. I think it's in the 6th round. Is the KO of the year.
All right, Lee picks the roster, man. But let me ask you a question about that. Being as though that you said that you thought Donaire was at his best, where do you think Walters goes from here? Do you think Walters is going to be the next guy at the featherweight division, or do you think he has some roadblocks ahead of him?
Well, I think one of the roadblocks ahead of him, one of the fights I want to see is Lee Selby versus Lee Selby. Because Walters, if Selby can follow up his potential, and get a world title, then there may be so. But yeah, I see no why he should go on to try and unify a couple of the belts or something. It'd be good to see him against Lee Selby. For me, as a UK fight fan, that's what I want to see. By the end after Selby deals with Gradovich, beginning of the year, hopefully if Eddie Hearn can deliver that shot, then I'd like to see him go there. But I'll tell you, I'd like to see Abner Mares versus Walters. That'd be a good fight after the other day.
Yeah, I think Abner Mares versus versus the Axeman will be a great fight. But I'm a big Lee Selby fan, but I think he should probably avoid Walters for the time being and try to clean up the other side. And then maybe they come to a super fight, because I really want Lee Selby to do well. And I think the Axeman is a bogeyman for anybody. But let me move it over to Boxer Beats and Rhymes. What was your KO of the year? Boxer Beats and Rhymes, go ahead.
Well, to sum the category up, matchmaking will often define who's going to be the best guy. If you match up really tough opposition, there's not really spectacular chaos. But Povetkin, he put a couple of good KOs in, Manuel Cha and Takam. My contenders, though, are Rod Salka with Danny Garcia. He nearly got his head put in the 5th row. And Amir Mansour and Cassie. But I'm going to give it to Amir Mansour. That was just brutal. And Rod Salka's was brutal as well. Not much in it, but I think Mansour was just evil.
All right, so you're going to decide on Mansour?
Yeah, Mansour.
All right, so let me ask you a follow-up question. Being as though that Mansour's in his 40s and doing all that jail time, how do you feel his career can progress from here, being in his 40s? Even though the heavyweight division ages lately, do you think he's got a chance to really get a good chance at a title shot?
It's a long road. It's a long road for him to break out the pack of other heavyweights and get a title shot. It's a long road. Whether he can do it or not after losing to Steve Cunningham, I'm not sure. Maybe a fight with Tarver would be interesting. That would be quite interesting, actually, Tarver and Mansour. But I don't see him getting a shot next year. And then that will leave him 2016, and how old will he be then? So
I think in 2016 he'll be closer to 45, maybe 46. I really don't know, but we're gonna move on now.
Uma, 1 second, honorable mention. I know, still in a knockout career. Just 1 minute, because some people might bring up in the comments. Dustin says Jorge Highlander knocking out Matthew Macklin, making him go to sleep on the bottom rope over here in the UK. I just mentioned honorable mention. That was sick, yeah. Left.
All right, Errol, you know what you just did? You just took mine. So what I'm gonna do is move on to another fight. Thank you for that. I'm gonna move on to another fight since Errol took my choice, because I thought I was the only person that had that. But what I'm gonna move to, since you said that, because I already had different categories, because I thought you was going to say that. Honestly, I thought that was going to be your choice. But what I'm going to move to the Andy Lee knockout over Jackson's son. I can't remember his name.
John Jackson's
son, which was a vicious hook he caught him with, and just put him out when Andy Lee was getting his ass beat, and everybody was saying that Andy Lee was done. He didn't have nothing. He was going to lose, and I know they were all saying that during the thing. But I've always been a big proponent of Andy Lee. I've always said he had good power, he had good skill, and Emmanuel Stewart told him that he was going to be a world champion. He just proved that last week. But that was a vicious knockout he put on John Jackson, and that's my knockout of the year.